I just realized that I haven't been recording, so I have to do that again one day. So you know how to pick your site, but what else do you need to ask for? So that's you being picky as a pilot, what you like to have as a launch. What else after that or before that maybe, what else do you need to consider? That's where you kick in. So you found yourself a perfect launch site. You'd really like to launch there. What do you need to consider other than yoo-hoo, my pilot needs are met? Your landing, that's very good. Your airspace. So airspace, that's something you can't see. So how do you figure out your airspace? Your airspace has come from an airspace map, exactly. So you might be clever and have one of these VTC charts with you. You can look up part of it online if you have telephone reception. Your instrument, very good, Milan, your instrument, you could have uploaded your airspace onto your instruments before you got there and can look it up there. You can ask the local pilots, they really should know. If they don't, not good local pilots. The site guides we have online, and some have still printed ones maybe, but say the Auckland Club on cloudbase.org.nz has got a full site guide, and that also gives you all the airspace restrictions. Sadly, Airways, who publishes, look it up beforehand. That's a very important thing as well. Don't go there and then go, but I'm in the control zone. So that would be too disappointing. If you're planning to go somewhere, you should already look it up. Sadly, the main source is still a paper chart, which I find very last century. But that's the way it is in New Zealand still. We have transferred, and there are different apps you can use to put it onto different instruments. No, we don't go by only if they catch you. In New Zealand, that's sort of, it's a bit like the other, what's the other issue? So you found a good launch site, the airspace is fine, and we do another lesson on airspace separately. What else do you have to consider? Important before you launch, before you even go up there. Other aircraft, yes. But the beauty of a paraglider is that you can just take your backpack, go through the countryside, find a good hill and launch. Weather, yeah, I'm after something else. Permission, that's right, landowner. So that's crucial. It is actually tricky in New Zealand, where the majority of land is private, and New Zealand landowners are they can be really generous. If you ask nicely and stuff, you probably get permission. If you go on their land first, any farmer, anybody, and they catch you, they are so pissed off, and it's going to be major, so do not do that. Always find the farmer first and go and talk to them. It's quite a bit different. Those who have flown a lot in Europe might have noticed there's a lot of public land, and a lot of all the meadows and all the obvious launch sites on top of the mountains are often privately owned, and there's cattle around, but there's a lot more right to roam than in New Zealand. People are entirely used to the fact that hikers and mountaineers, obviously originally, but also paragliders go off and launch there and make sure not to disturb the cattle, not to leave a fence out. So that's something that's a bit peculiar in New Zealand. The people are certainly quite protective of their land, maybe I think more so than other places. So for that, the New Zealand Association has published a country code or a code of practice. I'll just find that for you. Country code. Here we go. I share that screen with you, which I do from here, country code. Here we go. Country code, code of conduct from the NZHPA. It's very important, because if we don't protect our sites, if we piss off a couple too many landowners, or CAA for that matter, if we bust airspace, of course people do it by mistake here and there, and nobody will notice and stuff, but definitely never publish any track log anywhere if you've busted airspace. You just can't, because CIA actually goes through all sorts of track logs, sneaky little people, and they will get us. And if we are seen to be breaking airspace, we really end up in trouble and lose lots of permissions to fly or rights to fly. So country codes is a main code of conduct. I'll always check with local pilots, always ask for permission prior to your flight. Check again in springtime because there's lambing going on in the lakes. Just do nothing that could annoy the farmer or interrupt his operations on the farm. One big thing is always cows and cow sheds and milking time. Don't fly anywhere near, they run off one way or the other. Leave gates as you find them. Don't think to be clever to close one because you think they left it open. When it's open, it probably should be open. So the cattle or the animals can move through. Use the stiles, make sure you don't damage the fence, and all this other one. Avoid paddocks with crops and stock. Don't take your dogs, do not smoke, and all that sort of stuff. I hope that is all pretty obvious to people, but we publish it anyway, just in case. So we do depend on the goodwill of the farmers. And if you piss one farmer off, they all talk, there's quite a community, and then the next one won't let us launch or land there anymore either, and it just has a bad effect on all of us. But you're all very considerate people, so I'm sure it's fine. Okay, any questions about that? And on a permission there. Oh, and public, so private land you ask, or most sites are established sites, so ask the local pilots, don't approach the farm every time, look at the site guys, ask the local pilots. If it is public land, such as a park or what, a lot of New Zealand parks are recreational parks, so it's held by local authorities for the recreational enjoyments of the general public. And that very often for single people probably includes going paragliding. There are restrictions to that. There is actually a clause somewhere that you can't do any aviation in any site. So there's always that discussion whether that includes us or not. That rule was definitely originally introduced for powered flying, so there shouldn't be any powered flying. Every now and again it's sort of set or extended to include paragliding. That is a continuous discussion, so we're trying to basically get an official exemption for that. But as a private pilot, you can probably launch most places unless there is stop. When we do anything with teaching, that is different, or bigger groups, or if we want to run a competition or something like that. Generally, there are park rules for every park, and you can look that up as well. Okay. Now, make sure you do keep asking questions. Now, that gets us to our landing. So several of you have already wisely pointed out, when you pick your launch site, your landing site has to be part of the equation immediately, because you have to get there easily, yeah? And don't go by, oh yeah, I've got an 8-to-1 glide. Oh no, I think my glide is really hot. I've got 10-to-1 glide. Easy, I'll reach that. What do you have to take into consideration? Why can't you go by a 8-to-1, say, glide and think wind? So when you have wind, we talked about the glide ratios last time in aerodynamics. If you have a 20k wind, you'll only get half as far as your usual glide ratio. Sink, very good. So you might launch and it's not a soaring day, and it's a thermic day, and actually the next big thermal is just beyond your landing field, meaning all between your launch area and your landing, you might get a lot of sink, so you get nowhere near your normal glide ratio. Very good. So you also could have a problem with your wing. So you launch and you realize, oops, not in the brake line, little line over or something. So you have an issue with your glider, and you're definitely not going to glide your normal distance, and you need to land as soon as possible. Very good. So there are all the reasons why, it's not going to be, you're not picking your next possible landing at 8-to-1. You have to have one bomb out place somewhere nearby at all times, yeah? Because we do get it wrong, we do get our guess or our assessment of the wind wrong, of the conditions, sink and thermic conditions, very hard to predict if nobody else is flying. Or you could have an issue with your glider. So that's very good. So easy to reach landing field without many obstacles in between. And how big do you want it? The less experienced you are, the bigger you need it, yeah, right? As we get better, a bit like with the launch area, as you get better, you can land safely in smaller and smaller areas. But that's not a good thing to practice while you're practicing. So that's why I often give you a point for a spot landing to practice on, no matter how big the beach is. At Karatahi Beach, we've got 30 k's of beach. Most of it, about 25 of those, are very easy to land. Yet we ask you to land in that one grassy patch near the cars because we want you to practice to spot land. All in preparation for when you have PG2, you'll go flying somewhere else and you get smaller and smaller landing fields. Or you go cross country. Nature of the beast is that you very often end up in areas where you haven't landed before, you're far away, and of course you didn't check out from the ground all the landing areas and in the distance. So it is good to always pick yourself a point on every landing you do from now on or every time, and just practice getting close to that landing spot. Yeah. Similar to the launch areas, you look for obstacles that cause turbulence. You look for obstacles that you could fly into. If there is a big field with one tree, don't stare at the tree, okay? Because chances are you will then hit the tree. It's that sort of, I call it the possum effect, possum in the headlight. You stare at something and your body and your mind focuses on whatever you stare on. It's a bit like your mind. You can think about positive things and it will create positive thoughts in your mind. Similarly, you look at an obstacle and you're probably going to hit it. So you check for obstacles. At this stage for landings also, the surface of the ground is quite important because, you know, especially when you land in light winds and land, you often come in with quite a lot of airspeed, and whether you have a couple of rocks or a bit of bumpy ground, and that makes all the difference whether you're likely to twist your ankle or not. So you want to have nice smooth ground if possible. No turbulence and relatively big. And the more you fly into in thermic areas, the bigger initially you need the landing field, because all of you have gone thermaling with me somewhere before, you have thermal experience. You realize that, you know, you predict your glide ratio, but as you come in on a thermaling day, you get a bit of lift, you get a bit of sink, you get a bit of a gust from behind, so you might end up much shorter or much further along than you initially thought or calculated in your head. So that is again practice, you know, it's practice and experience, but also it's a safety thing to really pick yourself a good large field. So that gets me to landing approaches. I'll just have a look. Landing approach. Where do I have my pictures? I just find those. So what sort of landing approach do we mainly use while we are training? Do you know what that's called? Type me some answers. Landing approach. 1, 2, 3, go. An aircraft approach, very good, is one thing, but we don't do that one on the coast very much, or not at all actually, for good reasons. The other one we call a figure eight approach. So that's what you usually do when we are flying on the coast. It looks a bit like this. Oh, no, actually not like that. Like, it looks a bit. Sorry. Screen sharing is probably the thing that I have the least under control in here. Not what I wanted. Try that again. There we are. So this, the figure 8 approach is where we come in here, do a few turns one way or the other. Say you're flying away out of the lift band at Karatahi, make your way towards that green spot nearby the cars, and you just do a few little turns. And in strong wind, it's especially easy. You just need to do some lazy turns. And because the wind's so strong, you're just hovering, going back and forth here and landing. Yeah, easy peasy. So that's very suitable in strong winds. If you have a large landing field or when there's not much traffic. I'm saying not much traffic for a small landing field, because if you imagine yourself and everybody else doing the same, then it looks a bit more like this one here, where you have a whole lot of you and your friends doing the same thing. You know, there is Andrew with black and Dean in the pink and Marlon on the blue. And you can just imagine you're asking for trouble there, yeah? If you're all blocking one end of the landing field, and that's the part of the landing field, given our wind direction down here, that everybody will want to get into, right? So you're all blocking the final approach leg here, going back and forth, all a bit nervous, still too high until you can glide in. So that works if there aren't many people, or it's a very big landing field, you can land also to your left and to your right. If you drift forwards a bit, it doesn't matter. So this only works really well when the wind's really strong. So if there is no wind, you can imagine how you have to whip it around here, nearly going back, you know, you have to whip it around here, do real hard figure 8s to come in. That's not a good thing to do low to the ground, because you get G-force, you get a lot of sink and hard turns. You don't want to do that. If you are in strong wind, it's easy. You just have to do lazy turns. If you do the same relatively lazy turns in lighter winds, of course, you're going to carry forwards, and doing that. Yeah. So this is what works really well on the coast where we are, but it doesn't work very well inland. I show you, so what's the other thing we can do? Is an aircraft approach that somebody already mentioned. So that looks more like this. Why does it not share? I'm just trying, there we go. Okay. Aircraft approach. Of course, we have a hell of a lot of specialists on aircraft approach in this group. You might have to click the pictures away there. I'm not sure how can I shift it for you? Yeah, okay, that's good. So now you see nearly the whole thing. I reduce it on my screen. No, it doesn't seem to do anything on your screen. Not sure how I do it. Let me try something else, opening that in another way. I would like you to see the whole picture. So we do this in small landing fields. While this looks more complicated to do, it is actually really helpful in smaller landing fields. In light winds, because I said before, the figure 8 doesn't work well, because you would travel with your figure 8s too far along down the landing field, or you'd have to do harder turns. And it's also good if there's a lot of traffic on your landing field, because this is a predictable pattern, much more so than your figure 8s here. It's a predictable pattern people can join. That's why it's obviously on other aircrafts used like that. So I just tried to get that picture in a different way that you can see it better, the whole pic. Still only part of the picture. Is anybody expert on this one? How I can change this?
Try to zoom out. There's like the zoom. Oh, you have?
I do it on my one, and on my computer I'm zooming in and out. Maybe I zoom out and then share again. I don't know. Let's try. Trick. Yeah, I have to stop sharing and then share again, then it comes up like that. So I'm doing something every day. So this is your aircraft approach. Typically, it's a left-hand approach. I think our aircraft pilot people will, that's I think what you usually do, is that right? And apparently it came originally from where people and the pilots sit and the passengers sit in the aircraft. So we still do it with paragliding. We could do a left-hand approach unless there's a reason to do something else. Say if there's an obstacle here on that side or something, then we'd go the other way. So aircraft approach works that you have your position on the downwind side of the landing field. Is where you arrive, you lose your altitude by maybe doing 360s, doing this and that, but you lose your height down to and I read lots of, we can give definite figures, which is a bit hard, 100 meters or 200 meters altitude here. Then when you think you're about right, and we get back to that, when you think you're right, you start gliding downwind and watch that observe and remember that this line, your downwind leg, is outside of the landing field. So that could be, here's the green is your landing field, the yellow is the road, or I don't know, low trees or something unlandable. So it's outside your landing field you want to be, but it's not far away. It's in very easy reach to the landing field. So often we think sort of 45 degrees, towards your landing spot. And you watch your landing spot the whole time. So that's the major trick about it. You look, you glance at your point all the time while you're concentrating on your landing approach. So you're going downwind, 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 outside your landing field. Then you do a crosswind leg and then into the wind. So at this stage here, when you turn, you should be between, on a big landing field, 140, 30 meters across. And then with the last 30 meters, say, you turn into the landing, a long, nice straight glide in. A nice straight glide makes your glide ratio a lot more even. You don't have any pendulum, you don't have any sync with the pendulum, and you come in nice and smooth. So that is your general idea how you want to do that. Now, back in the real world, it doesn't always work like that, yeah? So this is about why we do it is because it's a predictable pattern and you have all this time here. So you make your judgment here when you leave your position. You think, oh, I think that's a good height to go. So now on your long downwind leg, all the way along the landing field, just past it, you can reconsider. You keep glancing at your perfect landing spot and you can reconsider, was that really a good idea or not? And then if it isn't the right thing to do, you can cut it short. So if you get around here, oh my God, I'm sinking like a brick, I cut short and I come in here and perfect, yeah? So the dotted line was your guess, yeah? And then because you didn't come in with your figure eight approach, but you came in with your aircraft approach, from your position, from your judgment here, instead of doing this long thing here, you actually think, oops, all wrong, far more saying whoop, whoop, and you're still doing a perfect landing. Yeah, this would still look awesome and it will work perfectly. Now, next time you go along here and you think, oh, gee, I'm high. So you do a couple of turns, you turn this out a bit further, keep glancing, ooh, still too high. I think I fly a little bit further around. Ooh, still glancing, then yeah, getting better, but not quite. Yeah, I think I got it right now. Oh, not quite yet, but here. Perfect. Well, you would look a little drunk or the likes, or, a little bit irrational. But I drew it like that to just give you the idea that from your judgment here, you have so much range of still getting it right, even though you are actually far too low and that was never going to work. And even though you were actually far too high or it was far too lifty, maybe just the thermal coming off. So you can still do that. You're still roughly in that pattern and you're still going to land just right and perfectly fine. If you were doing your figure eight approach, all you had to play with would be, oops, no, that didn't work. Would be this, oops, okay, I won't draw. Would be that last bit here, you see? And your variation there is only to land here, to land there, or do that one turn, right? So that was your judgment you had there, unless you really want to figure eight here and piss everybody else off. So aircraft approach, if done well, so here, you You'd obviously still a couple of tree heights high. You don't start that very low, but you just give it your best guess. You start gliding and keep glancing at here. Don't look ahead straight forward and think, yep, that's the pattern I'm going to do. I'm going to stick to it. That works with a motorized plane because you can adjust your height. You can, play around how you want to do it. With a paraglider, you are quite victim to the conditions at this stage, but your control is your good plan. This is a very good plan. And this is your observation where you can correct your own plan. Is that clear to you? Does that make sense to everybody? Oops, where's my chat gone? Here we go. Yeah, okay, good. I'm just reading password for the PG2. Remind me afterwards, please. Okay. Thanks, Tim. Okay, cool. So that was your aircraft approach. And that is something you can't practice. Why does that not work? That's actually something we should discuss. We discussed before why it doesn't work to do a figure eight here, because you're basically reducing your landing approach to that bit, and if it's busy, you're blocking the launch. Why does this approach, the aircraft approach, not work in strong winds? On the coast, it definitely doesn't work because somewhere here, you would now fly downwind towards the cliff, low altitude, hell of a ground speed on the coast. We fly in 20 k's of wind and more. So now you would have your glider speed of 30, 40 k's plus your 20 k wind, so 50, 60 k's towards the cliff. Don't want to do that. Turn around at this stage here to go this direction. You'd be going crosswind or you're sliding downwind. You turn into wind here and you're not going forwards. So really doesn't work, yeah? So that's why in strong winds, skip that. You do this, and in strong winds, we can do our lazy turns, use quite a small area, pull a bit of brake, and even if it's busy, it's gonna work out with a figure eight approach. Okay? So that's why light winds and small landing fields. And again, we usually launch, say those of you who have flown with me on early cross-country flights, we go to the Kaimais, landing fields for Africa, as they say. That's all grass and paddocks down below. The landing field we officially use is a very big field. In Bright also, it's quite thermic and it's not so easy, but the landing field is huge. But still, every time practice getting to the windsock or to the ideal place, just practice, just so as you progress into cross-country flights, you are going to be confident and safe to land in places that are less than ideal. When we plan it ahead, when we pick our launch sites, on our landing sites, our flying sites generally, we pick them for the level of students we have or for our own level once you do it by yourself, and be realistic there. Rather be a bit humble than too cocky. And it's just safer and you learn better and you have less stress and more enjoyment and cause less trouble, all of the above. So then as you get better and you dare to do cross-country flights, again, fly initially at the Kaimais, at the Pyros, farmland everywhere. When we do it in Bright, there are a bunch of areas which are tricky to land, but we pick our cross-country plan, we make our flight plan according to the landing area. So we fly from this turn point to that turn point, and if you don't get high there, there's a big landing for you there and a safe landing there. So make sure you don't put yourself into positions where you don't have a landing that suits your level of flying. Okay, I just have a quick scan on my country code. So when you do go cross-country flying, you now have to, when we pick landing fields, and official landing fields are agreed with the farmers, we pick the ones without stock. If he's got stock in there, you really have to talk to him first. Some stock doesn't mind so much. Some sheep don't really care, they run around a bit. Some cattle is more of a problem that they run towards you because it's something interesting, and licking your glider is really good for them because it's salty. Disgusting, but they do. But generally, when we pick sites that are not established flying sites or landing sites, we pick them to have no stock in them. If you have a choice, stock, no stock, you pick the one no stock. Same with crops. We always land without in paddocks without crops or something that's cut or plowed or something where the farmer won't mind. If that doesn't work, then sometimes you end up running out of options, or you see the stock hiding in the tree later when you get closer, then you might still have a different choice between one lot of stock and the other. What should you really not land in? What stock? What's the biggest deal? Where's the farmer going to murder you or the other pilots because they would be upset about you upsetting the farmer? Bulls. That's more your own safety. I've done that before. I must tell you a funny story. Deer, yeah, deer is very important because deer are so flighty. They can actually get scared, run off, jump in the fences and do whatnot, and they kill themselves or hurt themselves. What are people also very precious about? Horses. You can see, so you can see at Kiratahi where we, at my Ora, where we teach all the time, that all these polo ponies, and they just don't care about us. Sometimes they come for a look. We have some really cool pictures where they come right up with their nose on the glider, even while somebody was inflating and just jumping back a bit and come back. That's their horses. They're polo ponies. They're not sort of fancy race horses. And the other thing is they're used to it. Where they live, we fly paragliders. So that isn't representative for other horses. And worst of all, it's not representative for other horse owners, because sometimes the owners are as much of an issue as the horses. Some horses are fine with you landing right beside, but the owners who own expensive race horses might be ready to rip your head off. So be cautious with that. There's another problem with landing in deer paddocks. What's another problem about deer paddocks? The deer that jump into the fence might get hurt and the farmer might want to kill you. What else is it? Yeah, high fences. So deer are on high fences, and because they get nicked by poachers, they also have big locks on the gates generally. So you're in there, you have to either climb with your glider over a big fence that's usually too high to throw your glider over, and a locked gate. So good luck. And the farmer's still trying to kill you at this stage, so not the best option. There is a really important thing though. What's the first most important thing about landing and landing out? Biggest issue ever. It's safety. It's your own safety and safety of others. That transfers to safety of stock and that. So safety. If you